Snipers, you have to see what's happening to the Bitcoin price this Friday as we have a very big red candle down 7% with a low of 53,500 testing the 100-day moving average here for Bitcoin. And today we're really going to clean up this mess and look at all important time frames, starting with the 6-hour chart. You can see we do have this bearish continuation candle that just closed, which is why I had to get this video out to you guys. It looks like the $49,700 level is potentially on the table for Bitcoin. We're going to look at the revolving parts like the DXY traditional markets and some altcoins as well, as we always do here on the 4Dimensional channel. But let's really slow down today and first look at what happened here with Bitcoin. You can see on the 6-hour chart, we are seeing institutional sell pressure, and we've seen that storyline continue since the $69,000 level. And notice how now we have increasing sell pressure on the 6-hour chart, which is the institutional time frame, but we've yet to see buyers equate to this amount of sell pressure. So the likelihood that we can see some further downside is certainly on the table right now on the 6-hour. We go into the 3-hour chart, as notice that the buy volume that came in on this 3-hour chart with our first green candle was less than the buy volume that came in when we came above 58,300, which we know was the most important resistance that if we weren't able to hold on 4-hour candles, as the rule says on our Snipers channel, then we're most likely not going to be, breaking that level or confirming it as a break of that level. And on the 4-hour chart, of course, we got 2 indecision candles above the $58,353 level that we didn't really get a strong confirmation candle on the 4-hour above this level. And we go into this 1-hour chart, and what you'll notice here when we look at volume is we're starting to see an increase of buyers. So for the short term, there is a potential we can move sideways, especially because we have this 100-day moving average sitting at this level here where we have the low of 53,500. And so if we start to come back up, the real goal for the bulls at this point would be to get back above 58,353. A lot of these moving averages that are going to start acting as resistance. So on the 1-hour chart, we have to get back above all of these moving averages, and that'll also reflect with the Ichimoku cloud on the 4-hour chart. If we were to pull that up, notice here on the 4-hour Ichimoku, we're going to be way below this cloud, and to get above this cloud right now is going to be the first goal the bulls would have to conquer to assume some further upside. You can see we rejected the cloud getting above 58,353, and now this is really going to be an important resistance level in the next few weeks potentially. But with the 6-hour bearish continuation candle, we have to start looking at some downside targets here, not to be bearish, of course. And so 49,700 is still going to be that major support that if we were to start looking at some levels of confluence of what is around this area, we go into the daily chart, notice how we have this 200-day moving average way in below 49,700 right now, being at the 50-day and then coming now down to the 100-day. I think we can have some time before that we see this 200-day moving average, but it is an area of interest here, I would say, if we were to look at further downside targets, because if we were to extend this market structural level, there's obviously confluence there with that 200-day moving average. And so that's going to be 44,800 US dollars if we start to see price action below 49,700. But I think 49,700 is going to be the first downside target where we can find some volume. And I've been saying this since that 6-hour volume came in on the $69,000 level where we topped out, and we said it was the most volume that we had seen inside of this consolidation, and it was a sell candle that came in my opinion, in order to assume a short-term bottom for this downside move that has started here at 69,000 now with a low of 53,500 is to see some buyers equate to this amount of sell pressure on the 6-hour, so that we can see some institutions stepping up to the plate. And if we see that here at 49,700, that could potentially be the bottom, and then we don't get to the 200-day moving average at 44,800. But if we don't see that, then 44,800 becomes more likely for that downside target. So these are the times that you really want to slow down to speed up. And that's why, as I get into this 4-dimensional aspect of the analysis, I really want you guys to pay attention to how the altcoins are going to be reacting to this and what the traditional markets are also doing to affect Bitcoin's price right now. The first thing is going to be Ethereum being the leading indicator for altcoins. We want to look at the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart, because notice how we came up to test this market structural resistance of the symmetrical triangle with the value of Ethereum against Bitcoin, but we didn't break this resistance. So clearly this is a very important resistance area here at the 76,500 Satoshi level. And with Bitcoin making this downside move, it has caused sort of a bearish engulfing candle. I wouldn't call it a bearish engulfing candle just yet here on the daily, but we saw a rejection of this resistance that could potentially lead to a further rejection because of the fact that Bitcoin has just made a large move. And so the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart is going to be critical to watch there. And then we'll go into the Ethereum to US dollar pairing to talk about market structure and potential targets here. Just remember, we're inside this large range of 43.73 and 36.50. But as I always say, the midpoint of a large range usually will act as a support short term. And so looking at the Ethereum to US dollar pairing volume, I don't necessarily trust as much as the Bitcoin to US dollar pairing volume, because of course the volume with Ethereum can also be manipulated by the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart. So I like to follow the Ethereum to Bitcoin volume. And I would say that if we were to assume this has rejected, then we'd want to see some sell pressure come in here on the 6-hour institutional time frame with the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart. And you can see we did see a large spike of 6-hour sell pressure at this major structural resistance, and we do have ascending sell pressure. The question is, with the buyers stepping up recently, rescuing the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart around that 60,000 Satoshi level, are we going to be seeing sellers equate to this amount of buy pressure that came in? Because so far, we could still assume that the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart is actually bullish because of the fact we've yet to see that sell pressure come up. But if we start to see sell pressure, which we're starting to see on the 6-hour chart, that could also confirm the fact that this is ready to move to the downside, not the upside. Because the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart has not formed new highs in quite a while. It's continued to form lower highs. And so that in itself, as a macro puzzle piece, could assume that there is potential downside here for the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart, since we failed to form higher highs here. So a lot happening with Ethereum to Bitcoin. We look at the DXY. I do want to address a bit of what's happening here. We are seeing a push down here for the DXY, but over the last few weeks, especially since those inflation numbers came out, we've seen a very strong push to the upside. We are above a major resistance here at 95.885. We haven't really seen traditional markets react yet to the strengthening of the dollar. But now when we look at what's happening to the S&P 500 after the US dollar is starting to cool off, we're seeing a reaction. And so maybe could we assume that institutions were waiting to see how much fuel the DXY had before reacting with their capital in traditional markets and the cryptocurrency market? We could assume that as a potential thesis here. If we maintain 95.885 for the DXY, that wouldn't strengthen the bullish thesis on the traditional markets or the cryptocurrency markets. So that's what we're going to be monitoring here as a support. But it looks like the DXY is ready to calm down, and now the markets have decided to react to it. And then, of course, if we go into international markets, Japan also reacting now, back below its 200-day moving average and sitting at its 100-day moving average. So we'll definitely monitor this 100-day moving average for Japanese markets, because if we see downside there, that could indicate something a little bit more intense. China also fell, and the Euro 100 specifically fell the most, coming back down towards its 100-day moving average after being quite above it. It really looks like the DXY is affecting asset prices. Now, the gold to Bitcoin chart, which is my favorite chart, and a lot of you snipers that were tuned into our channel back on April 14th, remember that we used this chart to predict the 64,000 top that came, and that was obviously a short-term top before the 69,000 higher high that recently formed. And because of the gold to Bitcoin chart getting above the 50-day moving average and staying above it, we had assumed that it lost fuel inside of that phase of its bull market. And then of course that ended up being true. Right now, guess what? The gold to Bitcoin chart, even without gold really moving, has come above its 50-day moving average. But could we say it's sort of confirmed it as a support now? No, it's just testing it. And so this is going to be a huge puzzle piece to watch here in the next few weeks, because if we maintain price action above the 50-day moving average, that could be the confirmation that there is a lot less fuel left really for Bitcoin, and that it could see some further downside in the more macro term. But if we reject and get back below this 50-day moving average like we did on the 21st of April recently, and then Bitcoin was able to see the higher high for Bitcoin at 69,000, then that could be very positive. So this is going to be the most important chart to monitor as well over the next few weeks to really get an understanding of how much fuel Bitcoin has left. And so for a quick summary for those that want to pay attention to the Bitcoin price right now, the $58,353 level was not able to hold as a major level, and we got rejected on the 4-hour and 6-hour chart. We saw institutional sell pressure now bringing Bitcoin back down to the 100-day moving average right around this $54,000 level, but we've yet to see buyers come in on the institutional timeframes. And so the retail timeframes and the retail fundamentals and news might certainly affect the short-term price action, but the institutions will affect the long-term price action. And with a bearish continuation candle so far pointing towards 49,700, to me it looks like we're really going to have to wait and see whether or not 49,700 could hold as a support, because that is our downside target. If at any point we start to move back up, we have to now conquer the 4-hour Ichimoku cloud, a couple moving averages, and most importantly, the $58,353 level to see any further upside. But until that happens, 49,700 is on the table. And then there is that potential that 44,800, where the 200-day moving average is sitting, could come on the table. But I wouldn't expect anything further than that, because that's going to also test major market structural support. And so for a downside target, 49,700 as the, I guess, best case scenario, and the $44,800 level as the worst case scenario, just to give you two scenarios that could potentially come on the table. And then for the bullish side, we have to get above 58,353 to assume further upside for Bitcoin. I hope you enjoyed today's video. We have the #1 Discord community in the world. A lot of you guys have been buying these dips. There's nothing wrong with that. We've made a lot of money trading altcoins, even with Bitcoin moving down over the last few weeks. And that's because you take advantage of the downside moves. And then when there's upside, that's where the day trades come in and the swing trades come in. And of course, with altcoins being a small market cap in comparative to Bitcoin, there's a lot of profits there. So people buying AVAX. I hope you enjoyed today's analysis. Sometimes you have to slow down to speed up, especially when there's important price action. And I appreciate each and every one of you snipers tuning in the channel. Let's hit 200 likes on this video. I think that's an achievable goal. And until next time, snipers